Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Yes, hello there.
So it's still ongoing, guys. We got more than 600 quakes that have shaken the California-Mexico border area south of the Salton Sea since Saturday. And the largest was a 5.3, and that comes after two 5.9s up in the Cascadia area.
Whole lot of shaking going on, kids.
She beat me to it. I wanted to say that.
Well, he does say it sexier.
Well, now we got to stay G-rated here,
Oh,
or
sorry,
maybe
kids.
PG-13. I don't
Sorry,
know.
children. He says it nicer than I do.
Well, it's I appreciate that. That's nice of you. Very sweet of you.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is a pretty good sized swarm here. Quakes centered near Calipatria along the San Andreas Fault and about 30 miles north of the Mexican border. The area is not heavily populated and has been known to have swarms in the past. Yes, and I can't remember them. Incomparable too. So, it doesn't mean the San Andreas is going right now or Cascadia either, but then, these are very interesting times. And, you can't say no either. As you look at 820 quakes in 24 hours, this is all across the globe that the USGS is reporting. 546 of them are in basically the Southern California area. That's a lot.
It is quite a lot. It's something to definitely keep an eye on.
And we have a massive fire in West Phoenix spurring the largest response in fire department history. And we were talking to one of our dear sisters out there in Utah. She was saying, you got tons of rain where you are? And we said, oh, yeah, we got more than we can use.
Mm-hmm.
Send it our way. I wish we could. And I don't understand why the technology is not there for somebody to, right?
Yeah, well, I kind of think it is. I kind of think somebody knows what they're doing.
Yeah, where there's a will, there's a way. So obviously there's no will because there most definitely is.
Mm-hmm.
All sorts of geoengineering going on. There's tons of declassified programming. It's so obvious. Why can they not make it rain where we need rain? Why can they not stop the flooding where it's flooding and destroying crops? Why?
Mm-hmm.
I guess, why ask why?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't seem that it matters.
No, just learn to adjust.
So we could put our antenna out there, most definitely, and we could keep pointing things out and saying, did you know about this? Did you know about that?
Mm-hmm.
And keep waking people up all across the globe. So this massive fire that prompted the largest response in history of Phoenix Fire Department burned multiple recycling yards and commercial structures on Saturday in West Phoenix, threatening nearby homes, filling the sky with clouds of smoke and flames. There's been so many fires lately, has there not?
There has been way more than there needs to be, I feel. Just a little too much for comfort.
So yeah, a recycling yard. Has it gotten to that? Maybe this was just an accident.
Mm-hmm.
But have you looked at the price of lumber lately?
Mm-hmm.
Building, any of the building goods, it's through the roof.
Yeah, of course it was just an accident.
Yes. Well, was it? So, this is interesting. The neighborhood in the area of the fire is a post-industrial rail yard with a collection of junk shops, recycling plants, and more backed up against train tracks. We've talked about everything and the possibility of sleepy cells.
Yes.
Being around the area, so keep your eyes open. It's going to be an interesting summer, most definitely. And the wildfire situation, well, it's looking like it could be another record-setting year, which every year seems to be more and more record-setting. So is the Earth's core lopsided? Strange goings on in our planet's interior. Now, right off the bat, the Earth is tilted 23.5 degrees roughly. And that's part of the difference between Vedic astrology and Western astrology. Western astrology doesn't take that into account where Vedic does. And so, right off the bat, that gets me really suspicious. But we see that so many things in the West have been hidden. That's why we have a Western mystery tradition. Why? Well, if you wanted to point out things like, hey, uh, the universe doesn't revolve around us, the Earth revolves around the sun, the Earth is round, well, then you were likely to be burned alive or boiled in oil, drawn and quartered, or something else that was very unpleasant in the days of the medieval church. And it's interesting how that mindset kept going on for so long. And somebody made the comment the other day, "You don't like flat Earth, do you?" And well, because to me it just feels like it's part of the big control grid.
Well, to disrupt people and get people against each other. So, some people hear evidence, and I've listened to both. I've honestly listened to both. And they both sound good to me, but I'm like Mike, it just feels different. There's something a little bit off about it, but I'm not going to sit and argue with somebody over my belief versus their belief. No way.
Well, to me also, being at the top of the World Trade Center several times, just being up there, I thought I noticed the curve of the Earth. Besides being in planes many, many, many times. But I think the curve of the Earth hit me even more when I was up in the World Trade Center. It seemed very, very apparent. And then if you remote view, you see it's round. And that's like, okay, I see it's round. Our whole reality could be a holographic representation, just a matrix. So from that sense, maybe it is a projection of a 2D reality.
In that sense, it could be flat, right?
This is, again, how they get us, with take it one way or another. So, yeah, this whole reality that we see ourselves in, the science behind it being a holographic, matrix for consciousness to explore, looks good. So in that sense, yeah. But when we, actually observe things, no, they're basically round-ish. Again, not perfectly round. So, this is interesting. For reasons unknown, Earth's solid iron inner core is growing faster on one side than the other. And it has been ever since it started to freeze out from molten iron more than 500 million years ago, they tell us. According to a new study by seismologists at the University of California, Berkeley. What I've seen most sources say is that the Earth is about 4.5 billion years old or so. But we don't really know. That is the bottom line. We really don't know. We do have a lot of interesting things, anomalous items. Again, forbidden archaeology, for those of you guys that have never looked into it, that will definitely put some questions up as to, why they tell us this certain rock strata is 2 million years old or more, and yet there's metal spheres in there that have been obviously processed. Either, the timing is not right, or there was somebody here 2 million years ago plus that had very advanced technology.
Absolutely.
So this is really interesting. The faster growth under Indonesia's Banda Sea hasn't left the core lopsided. Gravity evenly distributes the new growth, iron crystals that form as the molten iron cools, to maintain a spherical inner core that grows in radius by an average of 1 millimeter per year. But the enhanced growth on one side suggests that something in Earth's outer core or mantle under Indonesia is removing heat from the inner core at a faster rate than the opposite side, under Brazil. Quicker cooling on one side would accelerate iron crystallization and inner core growth on the other side, on that side. So it's interesting, there's that quote-unquote anomaly over in the South Atlantic Sea next to Brazil. So does this have anything to do with that? Just throwing it out there. So this has implications for Earth's magnetic field and its history, because convection in the outer core, driven by release of heat from the inner core, is what today drives the dynamo that generates the magnetic field that protects us from dangerous particles from the sun. And we know that's weakening the magnetosphere. We provide rather loose bounds on the age of the inner core, between 500 million and 1.5 billion years, that can be of help in the debate about how the magnetic field was generated prior to the existence of the solid inner core, said Barbara Romanowitz, I guess I should say, UC Berkeley professor of the Graduate School in the Department of Earth and Planetary Science, emeritus director of Berkeley Seismological Laboratory. We know the magnetic field already existed 3 billion years ago, so other processes must have driven convection in the outer core at that time. The youngest age of the inner core may mean that early in Earth's history, the heat boiling the fluid core came from light elements separating from iron, not from crystallization of iron, which we see today. So a different process as well. It gets me thinking about a lot of things. And one of the things, too, that we have gotten from the guides is this 23.5 degree tilt that we see the Earth at now. In the future, it won't be there.
Shouldn't be there.
Yeah, in the future, basically, we're going to be straightened up and
Yep.
flying right, so to speak. And that will be very, very different. We've also gotten that the moon won't be there.
Right. That's definitely when the moon goes away and the Earth straightens out, it's like everything's going to go back into balance.
And that would be the beginning of heading towards that golden age, which does take time to get there. But, just getting out of where we've been is going to be a blessing and a half, to say the least. And that's where we're heading. So we won't have the tempestuous weather phenomenon that we have now. Things will be much more stable. We won't have all the chaos and all the earthquakes and all this, hurricanes and cyclones. Everything is going to change and be much more tranquil from what we have gotten.
Absolutely.
Sinkholes, collapsing canal walls, rickety bridges, Amsterdam's crumbling. Interesting. And so many cities, especially like out there in Europe, they're built on top of each other. Of course, that gets us thinking about mud floods too. Why are they building on top of each other? But it's the same thing with Paris too. There's so much as far as catacombs underneath Paris and New York too.
That's crazy.
But Amsterdam, we think of all the canals and dikes, a little Dutch boy and all that. It's interesting. There's large changes ahead, and you had sinkholes appearing here that they're talking about. That could have actually taken lives as well. Gotta wonder, sinkholes appearing in small streets. Nearly half of its 1,700 bridges are rickety and need repairs. Have you guys driven through New York highways? I mean, they are horrible, and crumbling as well. But, this is all part of the changes that are underway. And there's a lot underway as we have historic frost and freezes impacting farmers across the northern hemisphere. UK vegetable supplies desperately low. USDA crop rating system labeled a joke. Yes, UK veggies desperately low. And the Brits have shivered through the chilliest April since 1922. That was the year my dad was born. And one of the coldest Mays since CET record keeping began 362 years ago in 1659. So we know we're heading back to the times of a Maunder minimum or something, perhaps even more than that. And then you got all that artificial flavoring going on. So you remember Oumuamua? Well, they say we have a meteor fireball, or that's what they're saying this is, over Brazil. It might have come from another solar system because of the trajectory and angle. Interesting. Is this the dragon? Is this some of the shards from the dragon of Mother Shipton?
I don't know. It feels a little kind of different.
Yeah, that's what they're saying. And they do bring up Oumuamua as well. That very curious, quote-unquote, rock that, well, it did exactly what we would do if we were doing interstellar travel. It would use the gravity of the sun to slingshot itself in a new direction.
Smart rock.
Very smart rock, yes. Loaded up with hybrid reptilian humanoid beings, by the way, is what we have seen with remote viewing. So, the Ring of Fire annular solar eclipse of June 10th, 2021. It's just a few days away now, guys. Interesting energies we've had since the lunar eclipse. It's been a roller coaster ride.
Oh my gosh, to say the least.
It has been. And everybody we're talking to, rapid swings. It's like you get one moment you're in 5D, the next moment you're in the lower astral realm. It's
fighting off the little buggers.
Yes, exactly. Meanwhile, we have two of the richest people in the world Warren Buffett and Gil Bates building nuclear plants in coal country. Why do we want any more nuclear plants? As we've said, nuclear, period, is something that definitely concerns the galactics.
I know, that's what I don't understand. Is like, but I don't understand everything and all the treaties, but why is it allowed to even occur?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a natrium power plant, an anticipated cost of $1 billion. Will repurpose the coal plant for its operations in Wyoming. Exact location to be announced the end of 2021. The partners, Gil Bates, and should we say Baron Wuffett?
Yeah, let's do that. That works. Sweet.
Have chosen a top coal producing state as the new location for this new nuclear reactor. Mm-hmm. And when people realize that we have endless energy at our fingertips, as far as the technology that's hidden, oh boy, are they going to be up in arms.
Well, yeah, I mean, when we figure out with just basic crystals and basic magnets, we can run everything and do everything we've ever needed to do, and just from the air alone. Yeah.
U.S. judge overturns California's ban on assault weapons. This is just another sign, and of course, there's bigger fish frying in many ways, including the potential breakup, which what we have gotten from the galactics is that it has to basically happen because the system has to break down, period. The breakup of the states is coming because you're going to have states that are, they're not going to even just agree to disagree. It's going to be, no, we're not going along with it. Yes, you have to. No, we're not. And then what's going to happen?
New message. Oops.
Yeah. Well, somebody wants to chime in on that one.
Yes, they do.
So, that's the question. Then what is going to happen? And you guys know what I'm talking about, a certain PASS-PORT issue.
Yep.
Because, there's already legislation in place. That's going to be a huge thing. Probably end of the summer, fall, I think it's going to manifest. Russia's current supply of gold deposits should last for the next 40 years. Well, we talked about Russia getting out of the dollar. And I saw a comment where somebody had brought up that it was prophesized that WW3 would begin with Russia and China allied, and then Russia would switch and fight against China. And I've heard that from more than one place. I'm not sure. Can you get anything from the guides now?
No, I mean, that's what's going to happen. It's strange because what they do is they work together on a certain level, but then they don't on a certain level. And in the end, it does feel like that Russia is moving over to the U.S. side, and it'll be kind of a interesting turn of events.
Interesting. Okay, so you're getting from the guides that is actually that seems like what's going to happen.
It actually feels pretty solid. Yeah.
Pretty solid. Very cool. Yeah, I could see that too. Pope Francis pained as remains of 215 indigenous children found in ex-Catholic school in Canada. And, I was debating whether to say this or, show this or not. And, it just shows you, we always think about the, HOLO cost that happened over in Europe with people of a certain persuasion. And estimates are 6 million people lost their lives. But, here in the Americas, the estimates are 70 to 100 million lost their lives because of the system that's now in place now. Kicking the people off their land, eventually forcing them all into, certain tiny little packed quarters. And then this, making them change their religion. This is why, we bring it up, because that's been forced on so many people that you have to convert. Goes back to Constantine's church. And again, Council of Nicaea and the succeeding councils, they were debating on things like the Trinity. They didn't have that set in stone. There were some that were for, some that were against the whole concept of a Trinity. And by the way, in the Indus Valley in Hinduism, for instance, they had a Trinity that predated that, as the Vedas are far older, which they try to, get away from that. But it's just the fact of convert or die. It's what happened to the Gnostics after the official church version. And again, they debated on, was Yeshua Jesus a man? Was he God? Was he a God man? All these things were debated. They were not set in stone. People differed in their opinion. And when we look to the ones that lost the debate, they were the ones that were saying things like, no, you just got to go within, because gnosis, knowing, is experiential. You have to experience that. Instead, no, they gave us dogma and doctrine, and that was all about control, all about control. Yeah, they didn't even necessarily all agree on the second coming, because, to a Gnostic point of view, the second coming is a personal thing, and it happens within the heart of each individual. Has nothing to do with a literal second coming. And, Yeshua himself said, you'll hear them saying, look here, look there, kingdom of heaven, it's not out there. It's in you already. And here we're looking up to the skies, waiting for the Savior, where, he could be in our hearts right now if we just cultivate that.
Absolutely. It's something that's just kept us led astray for a very, very long time. And that's what we spend time doing, is explaining to people that it's all about going within.
Yeah, Yeshua was a teacher of ascension, mysteries, and consciousness. Jewish bridge to Temple Mount faces possible collapse, the report is warning. And the Temple Mount, of course, this is again, it's the religious differences that cause all these wars, because each side believes, I got the truth. You're, under the control of demons. Just that simple. Meanwhile, hey, look, if we go back to Tower of Babel, they're all united. They're as one. They're not fighting. They're building. They're being constructive. They're getting along. We can't have this. Let us go down there and disrupt them. And then in Deuteronomy 32:8, we'll put a heavenly being and, an Anunnaki and an Ijiji over each of the tribes to rule. And their bloodlines, the elite, will go ahead and keep ruling in the future in our stead. Meanwhile, the planet will keep being basically used, abused, and, raped and pillaged. Meanwhile, the inhabitants won't know what's going on. It's so sad. And here we see the holy river, the Ganges, the people of the Hindu persuasion who go and bathe in there ritualistically to cleanse themselves, turns green with a toxic algae bloom. This is just exactly what we have in this system. And meanwhile, drones and hundreds of people and vehicles sent to block unstoppable herd of 15 elephants trampling Chinese towns and farmlands. And these elephants are not dumb. One was so smart that it actually turned the water on and started drinking, and knew how to turn the water on and started drinking. And the thing is, they don't know what triggered this. We're seeing a lot of unusual animal activity going on.
Yeah, we are. I mean, that's really strange. And I think we're going to learn a lot more about animals than we ever have here very shortly, about their emotions and how they communicate and how they ration and, reason things.
There's 2 creation stories in the Bible, by the way. And in the first one, you're told basically to eat of the fruit of the trees, and the leaves will be for you, the herbs will be your medicine. Then the second one is after the fall, and we're told that everything is here for us to use and abuse. Just like the controllers, the Anunnaki, Ijiji, if we want to call them that. That's how their point of view is. And so that's when people started to use and abuse the animals and the wildlife as well. Even this little bat over here, you got to admit, those eyes are kind of cute.
No? It is.
Yeah. Animals have souls. They have intelligence. They most definitely do. As you see, one baby elephant drank 100 kilos of rice liquor and passed out.
Wow.
It was a Saturday night. They were just going a little bit crazy, that's all. It's not clear what triggered this. And it was a long trek. These things, they were on
They were on a mission.
They were on a mission. They had purpose.
Yep.
It's crazy. Some experts suggest it's a testament to China's success in preserving and increasing its Asian elephant population. The herd started at 16 heads, but has parted ways with some members, while a few baby elephants were born during its trip. But it's just a mystery. It's pretty wild, but we are seeing a lot of unusual behavior. And they found another quote-unquote extinct animal still alive, the Galapagos tortoise, by the way. As we had seen the tortoise crossing the road, it was like 2 feet across.
Yeah, it was huge.
It was huge. There's going to be a lot of new species coming out now, too, because of that magnetosphere decline. At these time periods, some species go away, quote unquote, and others appear. But maybe even the ones that go away are not really gone. Maybe they're hidden away in test tubes and labs and ships, or even in deep underground military bases that are inhabited by humans and other non-humans. Puppies are born with human-like social skills, wired to communicate with people. You know, I've seen it before where this one extraterrestrial book was saying that the author comes first out by saying, look at the differences in humans across the globe and look at the human family tree. All these different dead ends, you know, Gigantopithecus, for instance, was exactly what a Bigfoot was described to be. And we know they existed. We have molars, we have teeth, we have DNA evidence of them. It's an accepted fact. They were, 8 to 10 feet tall, typically huge. Then you have these little hobbit-like creatures too. Well, you got yourself St. Bernards, you got yourself Mastiffs, you got yourself, teacup poodles, you got yourself all different types of dogs. So his thesis was that humans are obviously the result of breeding by some higher intelligence for certain functions. And when we look at animals, when we look at dogs in particular, there's all different species of dogs. Some are great for hunting, some are great because of their sense of smell. Others, guard dogs, others, are guide dogs. There's others that are just meant to be held and snuggled.
Yeah, I know. And I always wondered, when you do find a dog that's like a mix of about 5 different things, that's got to cause confusion because we all have our natural instincts, pulling us in a certain direction. And it's got to mess with their instincts, I think.
It's interesting, yeah. So generally, dogs need little to no training in order to follow directions thanks to their innate genes, which have been developing for centuries. In fact, research at the University of Arizona say more than 40% of variation in puppies' ability to follow a human finger pointing is due to their inherited genes. It's a learned thing over generations. There's also been articles that I've read that said that humans have an innate, programming to worship. It's right in us to worship. And then when we listen to the Anunnaki stories, why were humans created? They were created to do the actual physical labor of these other beings. And of course, that's not our souls. That's not the part of us that doesn't end and never really truly had a beginning when you get down to it. Had this thought came through last night. I was reading A Course in Miracles, and it talked about your creator. And I said to Cindy, check with the guys, because to me, okay, the body had a creator. Somebody created this. Well, they basically took something that was evolving and changed it. As far as the body as a vehicle for this consciousness in 3D, 3D, 4D when we're asleep. But we are basically, again, living in a holographic, fractal-based universe, multiverse. And we are all imbued with source within us. Now, there are some golems, so to speak. There are some entities out there, and a lot of those dark black entities that often have the glowing red eyes, they don't have source in them. They're just a construct. They are basically an energy being. Just as we could consciously put our hands about a foot apart from each other, focus life force coming into a ball, visualize that, give that ball an intention to carry out something, like say, go visit mom. let her know to lock the back door. You could do that. And especially in these times, chances are mom's going to get that feeling like, I wonder if I locked the back door. I'm going to go check. Oh, no, I didn't. So we can put that intent into the life force. We could gather just by our concentration. You could do it also by some breathing techniques that we learn in Qigong and also in some of the mystery schools. But that ball would basically be life force that you created, wouldn't really be necessarily something imbued with source like we are. So, in effect, source, prime creator, God with the big G, has divvied itself up into an infinite number of possibilities, all different sorts of beings. And when you look in the eyes of your dog, source is in there and looking back at you. Same thing with the birds, the bees, the trees. Source is in all these things. And consciousness is something that's eternal. So it's not really created or destroyed. Just like energy can't be created or destroyed, it just transmutes. So from that point of view, there was never a time when we were not. So as Yeshua said, I and the Father are one. And he also said before Abraham was, I am. And he's not saying something that you can't say. So I'll leave you guys on that note to meditate and ponder on that. Thanks for being part of the family. Thanks for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. Make sure you're subscribed and have the bell clicked for notifications. Anybody needs to reach us for an appointment, it's EEARTS@protonmail.com or evolutionaryenergyarts@gmail.com. We know we're going to be without internet for a couple days this week due to moving around and stuff like that. And but we will be uploading off of the phone some videos. Yeah, so you won't see us miss a day. Probably not.
Probably not the videos, but it is much more difficult to get to the emails.
Yeah, to get through the emails and to get people scheduled.
But we will get caught up, we promise.
Yes, and then we're going to be moving forward at lightning speed.
It's going to be crazy lightning fast.
As long as the grid stays up.
Yeah.
As always, guys, God bless and namaste.
Namaste.